Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 13th, 2020, Round of the Puentes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's almost comical, even though we're dealing with this health crisis in America, to hear the current president of the United States say he is not responsible for any of the lack of response to this coronavirus that we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
That is former President Obama's fault.
Yeah, they always say blame the black man when you're looking for votes, and it doesn't work anymore, Big C. It's all fur and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. So I know POTUS says it's not his fault, even though he cut funding to the CDC. And even though, there's a lot of people that said it started back in January when we had some knowledge about that virus, Big C, but they're just having a press conference really for the first time. He had his medical doctors and friends behind him today. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the smartest thing for him to do, Charlton, would be to stop talking.
Yeah.
The minute he opened his mouth on this virus, and you've been capitulating throughout this entire thing, one lie covering another lie, and then today to Charlton to go as far as to say that it's former President Obama's fault. Now, he's been president for the last 3 years, taking credit for everything that's allegedly good in America.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, the crisis has come about, Charlton,
Blame the
because
black
he
man.
has no health knowledge, and even the people on his staff had no health knowledge. He wants to blame former President Obama, yet President Trump cut the CDC budget 2 years ago in half.
Yeah.
The Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, he cut their budget in half and took that money, Charlton, to apply to his so-called wall down in Mexico.
Yeah, he just forgot, Big C. I also want to make sure that we give out our Veterans Crisis Hotline for people who need help, and they really are experienced at helping veterans and their loved ones. It's 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, we're all in an epidemic stage in America now, and everybody is being prescient about health, welfare, and safety. These are the things that our veterans have been concerned about every day, Charlton, not just because of the coronavirus. They try to survive after becoming reassimilated into society here in America.
That's true.
But many of those veterans, Charlton, have health and mental problems when they return back to society, and it becomes very difficult to cope. If we look at the run that has been on supplies in America, just from the everyday citizen trying to make sure that their family has enough to take care of themselves, think about those veterans that are homeless, who can't go out and fend for themselves, Charlton, and those with disabilities who could not go to the grocery stores and places of need in this time of rush for food and supplies for their homes, Charlton.
Yeah.
Many veterans have fallen to suicide in this country. It's a horrific disease that has afflicted some 19 veterans a day. As we talk about the deaths from the coronavirus, and I do not make light of that in any kind of way. I deep sincerity to all those families who have lost loved ones. We're losing some 19 veterans a day to suicide. which is an horrific disease that our government seems not to recognize.
Yeah.
I know we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. You give out the online address, Charlton, for a website. But we need constant contact with these veterans. We need that human factor.
Yeah.
Not just going online, just like they say, go online and try to figure out how to stop the virus. We should have the human factor telling us, just like we need that human factor in touching our veterans on a daily basis, beyond the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, beyond the website number that you give out. There needs to be a concerted effort from our government to help out our veterans even more.
And we will definitely do our part. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can get some help, or you can help somebody that you know going through issues. Get help. You know, you just brought my mind to something, and I'll touch on it in just a moment. I want to also just acknowledge launching a real estate TV listing show in spring of 2020. The goal is simply to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's is on TV. Car dealerships, the car you're driving right now, you probably saw that dealership on TV. Sports teams are on TV, even though a lot of TV companies have canceled their sporting events. But do the same thing in real estate. If it works for TV to buy merchandising, it can work for listing properties also. You get that with the Big C team. I want to make sure I get that in. I love the fact that we do bring out that crisis hotline, and I hate the fact that there's a crisis at times. But if we lost 19 people a day for a coronavirus, Big C, the way we do military veterans, if we lost 19 a day, and I mean, just think about how much more attention it would be given if we made it be known to the American public that we have people that fought for our country and they're having such issues. I just want to make sure we do our part. We can't save the whole world, but I love bringing that up.
But that's what a pandemic is.
Yeah.
Losing 19 people a day to something that potentially can be solved with the proper investment. I mean, we have the government funding the coronavirus, and they should.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not making light of that in any kind of way.
No.
But our veterans have been here long before the coronavirus, and they will be here after the coronavirus, Charlton. And if we had the death rate of 19 a day in America due to the coronavirus, think of the upheaval. Maybe the White House would be doing something formidable, because they won't even talk with the House. I know that Steve Mnuchin and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, are negotiating a deal, Charlton, to fund, extra fund to take care of families and school kids, Charlton, and meal times and all of these things because of this coronavirus.
Yep.
Just think if this much emphasis was put on our military veterans, Charlton, that we're losing 19 a day to suicide.
Yeah.
19. And that's not counting the homeless ones, Charlton. These are the people who made this country what it is, who have fought for this country, and yet we're saying that they're non-salvageable.
Yeah.
That's what our government has done. They're non-salvageable. They're dispensable.
Yeah. And I just hope we give more than our thoughts and prayers. And I make sure we do our part. I also want to say to our friends in Canada, and I know that we have, everybody probably knows by now, Justin Trudeau, his wife, I believe her name is Sophie, the Prime Minister of Canada, his wife tested positive for coronavirus, and he also self-imposed himself in a self-imposed quarantine. So we wish our well wishes to him and his wife as well, Big C. I know a lot of things go on in life that are a lot more than just sports, and I love the fact that we do have such affinity for our brothers and sisters up north, and it's great to see a whole country pulling together when their commander-in-chief goes through something. Also, in the world of sports, I heard some people, some good old boys. It's funny because, people capitulate. It's okay, nobody's perfect. But I still remember some of the broadcasters that I hear on the air about a year ago, or even 2 years ago. They didn't want to talk anything about Black Lives Matter. They didn't want to talk anything about Colin Kaepernick taking a stand for equality and justice. They try to make it anti-military, yet they don't even give out numbers to save military people. Now I heard some good old boys saying, man, what are we going to talk about now? There's no more sports. Does their knowledge only run as deep as what's in front of their face, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, I guess they're going to have to start talking about replays. And what's that device, the hopper that you guys record events with, Jonathan, to go back and watch them later? I guess they'll have to look at some replays and then come on air and talk about those.
See, I heard, I won't say the name of it, but everybody knows the station is all over the country. They were playing some replays of some sporting events. Replays as opposed to having some broadcasters that they're paying pretty good money to know what's going on in the world. Just tell the truth. It doesn't matter if you have it in front of your face or not. Also, I know you're a golfer, and I was making a little bit of fun of you. I know you're a pretty good golfer, actually. I was saying on the golf course, your name is normally known as Four because the ball's going all over the place. But even your friends down in Georgia have announced that they postponed the Masters due to the coronavirus fears. And it's ironic, but it's also true. And I'm being flippant, but when you look at courses like the Masters, it's a great golf course, but they've had such a propensity to exclude people of color. Yet it takes a virus to keep white people away. Does that strike you as ironic, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when I look at the Masters and what they did, the Masters is not just a golf tournament, Charlton. It is a worldwide event, and that's what has made it so large over the years, is that the world comes to watch the Masters. It's one of the most exclusive golf courses in the world, and it's been racially divided, Charlton, since its inception.
Yeah.
You have to look at where it is and what's the name of the course, all right? It was named after slave masters.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so what they did was because of health reasons. This crossed the divide of all these other things.
Yeah.
Is that they didn't not want to be responsible for bringing all these people from around the world. And you have to also understand, a lot of the fans and spectators that would have attended the Masters have been banned from coming to the United States.
Yeah.
With this travel ban that has occurred, and I was talking with a friend of mine that was on his way back to Germany today.
Yeah.
And he's going to be over there now, Charlton, and Lufthansa airline, which he was flying on, will not be able to come to the United States for at least 30 days.
Wow.
But he had business to deal with over there that he could not get away from.
Yeah.
Because life is still going to go on even with this coronavirus around the world. I understand all the hesitation and cautions that everybody are taking.
Yeah.
But the world and society still has to function.
Yeah.
And by not putting all those people in those tight confines down there at Augusta, Georgia, Charlton, because there's a lot of events beyond the Masters. I mean, it's a week-long event. There's putting contests, there's driving contests. There's a women's contest that goes on. There's an amateur contest that goes on down there, Charlton. So to bring all those people into those tight confines, I commend them for that, regardless of the racial divide that they had, and this thing goes beyond racial barriers, is that you have to look out, and like I keep saying, there has to be an adult in the room somewhere. I mean, we're not getting it at the White House, but we're getting it everywhere else.
Yeah, I still find it quite ironic out here on the West Coast. We know discrimination can happen any place, but it's just not as bad out here on the West Coast. But I just think it's ironic that a golf course that discourages people of color from being able to join it, they're stopping their own ethnic group from joining because of a virus, not because of human decency. Big C. I just thought that was ironic. At this point, though, as the situation continues to rapidly change, it's the right thing to do for a lot of players, but they've also canceled the rest of the Players' Championship and upcoming tournaments, too. Ironically, you wouldn't think that this guy's number one in the Royal, but Rory McIlroy wants coronavirus test also on the tour. He's the world's number one player, depending on what polls you look at, and he wants caddies to be tested also. Whether you're tested or not, you either have the virus or you don't, but I like the fact that at least, it may be a month, it may be 2 months too late, but at least we are starting like that caboose on the train. It's nice to be the engine, but at least we're starting to get people to come together and talk about that. And sports, ironically, Big C, sports is becoming the vanguard of a lot of major news stories because it does really carry so much weight in our society. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, sports carries a lot of weight, Charlton, but there always will be another day for sports. I mean, right now, the world health is the number one issue. I like what Rory McIlroy says. I believe that everybody participating in sports, collegiate, professional, high school, if you're in a sport where there's sweat, and that's all sports, Charlton, there needs to be testing done. It should be mandatory. I know we don't have enough tests in the United States, Charlton. What's today's date? The 13th or 12th?
Friday 13th.
I can't remember things.
It's Friday 13th.
Kicks my butt from time to time. But whatever date we're on,
Friday 13th.
We still have not had 10,000 American citizens tested. Think about that. We have not had 10,000 American citizens tested. This has been going on since January. And the White House keeps saying there's going to be millions of tests available. Everybody can get a test. All you got to do is ask for a test. You turn on the news every day, people say, I cannot get a test. I don't know where to get a test. Where do you get a test? Go to your doctor. Doctor doesn't have access to the test kit.
No.
There's excuse after excuses. They're like it's like that old analogy. Excuses are like butts. Everyone got one, and no one likes the one that they're looking at that point, okay? And that's where we are with the White House, constantly giving excuses every day. And so this mandate of sports testing, because sports is such a big part of society, and it constantly brings so many people together, body to body, that are spreading the pathogens. And when people want to continuously sit down and say, well, don't touch this, don't touch this. This is a pathogen disease, Charlton, and pathogens mean airborne, spread. If you want to know how a pathogen moves, watch somebody who smokes a cigarette or one of those e-cigarettes. When they blow out, you see the puff of smoke come out. That's what happens every time you cough, every time you sneeze. Those pathogens move just like the smoke in the air, except they stay longer.
They do stay longer. Masters tournament was scheduled April 9th through the 12th. Is the 5th event of the PGA Tour schedule that will not be played in its current spot on the calendar following the cancellation of the remainder of the Players' Championship and Valspar Championship in Palm Harbor, Florida, WGC Dale Match Play Championship in Austin, Texas, and the Valero Texas Open in San Antonio. So it's good to see that golf is coming around to doing what a lot of other people are doing. And just like McIlroy and all the other great golfers out there, they have families. They have the great Jack. I heard the great Jack talking about it too. You know, he has his 18 major championships, Big C.
But if you look at the Masters, Charlton, the Masters technically is not a PGA event. It is a self-governing event. The Masters is not part of the PGA circuit. It can be played at any time, realistically. The problem with Masters, at the time that they play it, they try to play it before all the pollen comes out in Georgia. It's very difficult to play it in the summertime with all the heat and humidity in Georgia. And then in the wintertime, you never know what type of environment you're going to get, Charlton, late in the year, come October, November, with the rains, the inclement weather that you potentially have. So if the Masters decide to play at any time, it will go on because it's its own self-governing body. It's not part of the PGA.
Not part of the PGA. You know, another great event that's been affected by it is the Boston Marathon. That's been postponed also for several months due to growing concerns of the I guess the coronavirus. Some people call it the COVID-19. But the Boston Globe, obviously, they're major. That's one of the biggest runs in the world. I know a lot of people from California that are even training to go to Boston to run the Boston Marathon, and they're not going to be able to do that. And so I think it's great that people are coming together, and sports is affected by politics, and politics is affected by sports. But I was just listening to some information about what happens because the Boston Marathon is such a large event. It brings in about $200 million to the Boston economy in just a couple of weeks because people flying in and out of town and spending money, and then the heavy TV sponsorship that goes around that event too. That's a lot of money when an event cancels. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's a minor thing, Charlton, in the totality of everything. When you look at the St. Patty's Day events that are canceled, we're talking about a worldwide scenario with the St. Patty's Day.
Right.
And you think about how big it is in a lot of the cities around the United States, Chicago, Boston, New York. St. Patty's Day was started in Savannah, Georgia, which is the home of St. Patrick's Day in America. A lot of people think it's up in the Northeast, but it's not. But St. Patrick's Day is celebrated worldwide. It's not just like the Boston Marathon, a one-day event, and people do fly in globally for that race, and there's somewhat up towards 1 million people who line the raceway and participate as sponsors and helpers in the race.
Yeah.
But when we look at this global epidemic, sports pales to that, Charlton. I mean, we talk about sports like everybody else.
Yeah.
But when we're sitting there and you were asking the past couple of days, what's more important, money or health? It's proven out that health right now is trumping money.
Yeah.
Because when you think about all these sporting events that have been put aside, yes, they generate a lot of money, but they also are costing a lot of people money, Charlton, not being put on.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that are like I keep talking about the vendors and the security and all these other people that work these events. These are the people that need to be in the forefront of everyone's mind, especially even Congress, as they pass in these subsidy bills, Charlton, to help relief during this time. When we have no sporting events going on in America, and we talk about the four major sports in North America, professional sports.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the collegiate sports because they have just as much of a staff in those arenas as they do with the professional sports.
Yep.
But when we think about all the arena workers, all the support staff around these arenas, not only that, Charlton, team employees, what do we do about them in light that the sports are not being played?
Yeah. There's some companies that are actually doing the right thing and trying to at least send some paychecks to a lot of the players. You know, I want to just backtrack on something you said because I told you in my opinion that when you're prescient, it just means to have knowledge of things before they happen. Some people just call it intuition. You know, you can feel things about people. You can really feel things that people are going through without them even talking to you because you feel it in your gut. A lot of kids are really, they call them psychics, but sometimes they're just empathic. They can feel things. Well, we did talk about that show. You just brought it up. What's more important to people? Is health or money more important? And that's before people started canceling games. Maybe they were taking a peek listening at the Big C Sports Show. Major League Baseball even encourages players to go home after canceling spring baseball. Spring baseball, yeah, you can cancel that, but will they push back the regular season? That will tell you if money is more important than health. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you answer this question for me. In the NBA, what's more important, money or health?
Is health now that the players said they're not going to play?
No, it's not, because the owners right now have an option. It's called a nuclear option.
Yeah.
In their collective bargaining agreement, okay? Where they can withhold money from players for games not played. That is one of the things that the owners of the NBA put into their collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
So when you look at the percentage of games that have not been played, if the season is not fulfilled, the owners have the option to withhold that amount of money from the players on the roster. They're not obligated, if they choose the nuclear option in their collective bargaining agreement, not to pay their players. So when we talk about what's more important, health or money, I keep telling you, money trumps everything, Charlton.
I doubt if that's going to happen at all, because
But no, it's going to happen. You know why? Because the owners own that, Charlton.
Yeah.
The owners own that. You have to understand, whenever owners go to the bargaining table in these collective bargaining agreements that we're having right now in the NFL, is that this is what we want. No owner of any business is going to say, I'm going to give you total autonomy to do to me whatever you feel like, and I own this business. I will give you leverage, but I won't give you the house. And you don't put something in a contract not having the ability to exercise it. And trust me, they're going to exercise that.
Are you saying that Jenny Buss is going to say, LeBron James, thank you for everything you're doing for the Lakers, but I'm not paying you money because of a national health crisis? I don't think the players would put up with that, and they would probably strike.
No, Charlton, the players agreed to that in the collective bargaining. It's not LeBron James. It's bigger than LeBron James. It's called the NBA Owners Association, okay? And the players agreed to that. The owners are not doing this. This is something that the players agreed to. Collective bargaining, you go in, you give and take.
Yeah.
Players never suspected this option would come along. But it's like when you play poker. You got to have a poker face.
Yeah.
Whether somebody has a better hand than you or not, you still got to have a poker face, and you got to play it through. If you're raising somebody, you got to keep raising, Charlton, because you got to make sure in a no-limit hand that you have a better chance to win because he's nervous about what you're doing. That's what the owners did. They played poker, Charlton. It's not about LeBron James. This was done before LeBron James was the face of the NBA. In that last collective bargaining agreement, the owners put in the nuclear option. You don't put in an option in a contract unless you at some point feel that you're going to need to utilize it.
Well, okay, how would you attest that juxtaposed to the county of San Francisco telling Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green and all the stars that they can't play? It's not like the players are stopping. It's not like they're deciding to walk out.
The county did not tell them. You got to understand, the league told them, Charlton.
Yeah.
The league suspended operation. No county across America suspended operations on any professional league. The leagues that's self-imposed by the leagues, okay? That's something that this is the reason why you have owners. The players don't own the league. Yes, they get a percentage of the revenue, but they do not own the league. The billionaires own the league. And it's like going to court. You say somebody who has a client for, if they represent themselves, the client is the fool.
Yeah.
You know, because you need an attorney.
Yeah.
When this contract was negotiated, it was negotiated with savvy, Charlton.
Yeah.
The players know about the nuclear option. The owners would not be blindsiding the players with this if they choose to exercise it.
Yeah.
Because the players gave them that right to do it.
I still don't think they would exercise it. Just like we have at-will employment, I don't think they would just say, we're not going to pay you because the league decided you can't play. But it is interesting.
That's what the league is, at-will employment.
Yeah.
No one forces these players to come in and work. Think about it. Players hold out all the time.
Yeah, they
do.
So
when a player holds out and they holding out and losing money, isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. Well, it's still extrinsic circumstances if we have. I just don't think it's the same thing, and I don't think they would enact that. But hey, maybe they would. You know, money does rule the world, Big Z.
Think about how much money that the owners are losing, okay?
Yeah.
The owners are losing money from television revenue. And you don't think that the broadcast companies are not going to exercise the nuclear option in their contract, Charlton?
Yeah, to not pay.
As they say, that word that starts with an S rolls downhill. That's what this is, okay?
Yeah.
When the broadcast companies tell the owners, we're not going to pay you for this last 20 games because they were not played or broadcast, you think that the broadcast companies wouldn't do that to the owners?
Isn't that amazing?
When the broadcast and all the sponsorships saying, hey, we had an agreement that you have to fulfill this. I worked in broadcasting for years.
Yeah.
And there were fulfillment agreements that you had to do throughout the season. Otherwise, you did not get your money. When you don't hit a certain threshold of viewership, then you buy cost per point when you're buying advertising.
Yeah.
If you don't reach that threshold, then there's monies that are owed back, Charlton. This is the same thing. So when these games are not being broadcast, you're promised X number of dollars in revenue to the league from the broadcast companies, but you're guaranteeing the broadcast company that you're going to present X number of games on the floor. This is why the big crisis came when they started talking load management, that there should be money given back because the superstars are not playing.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. And I say that word that started with an S that rolls downhill.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. When the broadcast company goes to the league and the owners and say, okay, you didn't fulfill your contractual agreement of 20 games. We're going to exercise this non-payment agreement because you didn't fulfill it. So the owners are going to say to the players, we're going to exercise this nuclear agreement because these games weren't fulfilled.
That's very interesting. We know NCAA March Madness is also going through that, where there's $1 billion on the line, and a lot of that money is insured anyway. But that's actually information that's interesting and new to me, Big C. I really want to look into that. I just don't see, but maybe I can see, because they can fire players if they don't shoot a jump shot good enough or they slow down in rebounds. You know, they fire players all the time. It's called being released from the team. It happens in every sport, Big C. So that's something I really want to talk about more in the second half.
The nuclear option, Charlton, supersedes the guaranteed contract. There are players with guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
But the nuclear option, that's for unforeseen circumstances, okay?
Yeah.
That are catastrophic. You have to look at the wording of it, and it exists. It was written by lawyers. The league is not, trust me, these billionaires have some of the most expensive and best lawyers in the world, Charlton, that are there as soon as they hit speed dial. That's the first person on the speed dial. And when the league constructed this contract, Charlton, they're not going to construct a contract with the players that is not good for them. You see that going on right now in the collective bargaining with the NFL. You got players fighting each other over the collective bargaining. The owners are not fighting. They got the players fighting each other. They're sitting back. in their posh estates said, hey, these fools will figure it out eventually, but they're going to give us what we want. You got to understand, that group of 30 in the NBA ownership, that group of 32 in the NFL ownership, who do you think has more power? That group of 32 in the NFL ownership or those 1,700 players? And in the NBA, is that group of 30 owners or that 278 players? Who has the most power?
Yeah, the money has the power. Let's take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk about money and power. Who has the money and power in the White House and in the sporting teams? We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also launching a real estate listing channel already underway in some markets and looking at 100 real estate brokers to simply list real estate properties on TV. McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, and even sports teams do it, especially the ones that are allowed to play. You can do it too. Use the power of TV to get that listing so the universe can see the properties that you have for sale. Now, you talk about that nuclear option that's in contracts, and we talked about it for sports teams. But I want to juxtapose that, as we'll cover some more sports too, because that's interesting, and I did not know about that, Big C. So I'm gonna read in that and Google that too. But just today, I think it's important to mention that at the White House, that POTUS, obviously, he denied that he was the reason for the failure of a lot of things that could have happened sooner. Dr. Fauci said that the lag, like the delay, like the Big C pause, the lag or the pause in testing was a failure. But POTUS, President of the United States, for you good old boys down south, POTUS says he does not take responsibility for failing to act, declaring earlier, calling it fake news and a Democratic hoax on the coronavirus, Big C. And now that science has caused POTUS to capitulate. Because of science, we can slow the spread, according to Dr. Fauci, not Dr. Trump. So who's right? Was Dr. Fauci lying when he said that the lag in testing caused by our president who made fun of people? Which one is right, POTUS or Dr. Fauci, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's a better question posed for the people who wear the MAGA hat, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because by him saying that he held no responsibility for the delaying of the response of the United States to this coronavirus, Charlton, it wasn't his fault. It actually fell back on former President Barack Obama, who's been out of office for over 3 years. Yeah. And he's talked about all the great strides that America has made since he's been president and the things that Barack wasn't able to do. Now, you got to remember, Barack Obama was around during Ebola.
Yeah.
Okay? He stopped that. He funded the CDC in Atlanta.
That's right.
He made sure it stepped up all of what it needed to do to fight that disease at that time during his presidency, Charlton. He didn't lag. And he had experts around him every day speaking. He didn't go out and say, well, it's going to go away when the weather gets warm and, it's something made up by the Republicans, to hurt my candidacy and everything. And he never said that, Charlton. Yeah. He surrounded himself with experts. He spoke. The experts spoke. He didn't have talking heads that were telling people what he wanted them to say. They spoke from the expertise, Charlton. Yeah. So for him to sit up and lie to the American public on a grand stage in the Rose Garden at the White House to say that he's not to blame for the lack of response by the United States because, the Democrats were taking him through an impeachment. Yeah. And he had to concentrate on that. But he forgot to tell people during the impeachment, he flew down to Florida 3 times and played golf. So he wasn't too concerned about the impeachment.
He sure was not.
If he was to ever come forth and be totally honest with the American public, it would be a great thing. You expect that from your commander-in-chief to be the big boy in the room.
Yeah.
But we got a guy that wears diapers, seem like.
Well,
Depends or something like that.
Well, I want to just oppose something that happened today. It was good and bad today. Ironically, POTUS did not have Jerome Adams. You know, he's United States Surgeon General, which is supposed to be the top guy when it comes to handling people in these matters. He didn't have him speak as a part of the solution to the coronavirus spread. He just happened to be an African American. Yes, he was appointed by POTUS, yet he did have many heads of pharmaceutical companies, like from Walmart also. I think there was a Walgreens and CVS and some other companies. And
But if you look at the people that he had there, Charlton, that was a photo op, okay?
Yeah.
When Dr. Fauci spoke, he could not contradict the man.
No.
Because he spoke of knowledge, of science and medicine, Charlton. So POTUS just had to sit there and bite his tongue. Those other people behind him are there for photo ops.
Yeah.
They're non-knowledgeable. You can bring in the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, Charlton.
Yeah.
He has scientists and doctors that work underneath him.
Yeah.
Just like POTUS. He has people who work underneath him that are knowledgeable, but you have to understand why POTUS has started speaking as of late.
Yeah.
Because Mike Pence was getting so much attention from the media holding those daily press briefings is that he became jealous, Charlton. He became jealous of the vice president because he spoke eloquently. He did not speak of solving anything or getting ahead of anything, but he spoke eloquently where people could understand him. So he goes and has this Oval Office speech that, I mean, it made him seem unintelligent. That's the best way I could put that. It made him seem unintelligent and unempathetic towards the plight of the American people at the time, Charlton.
Yeah.
And everyone started making excuses for him after he made that Oval Office speech. I've never heard a president have so many excuses made for him, even by Fox News, Charlton.
Yeah.
They were, well, maybe he wasn't prepared. Maybe he just got the speech at the last minute.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe they didn't let him know, you know, every excuse that you could.
Yeah.
Well, he may have misspoken, but he meant something else. You're going to tell me that the president of the United States, when he speaks, meant something else, not what he said?
Yeah.
So this is what he's doing right now. He's speaking, Charlton, and he's putting all these talking heads around him. But he let Fauci speak. And once Fauci starts speaking, Charlton, it's the one guy he can't contradict, so he has to sit back and bite his tongue.
Yeah, and the more other people you have come on and speak, the more you disappear with what Fauci said. I do want to think it's ironic that he did not have the Surgeon General speak, Jerome Adams, but yet there was an African-American reporter that asked him the question. She said, he said that she asked him why did he cut the funding of the CDC. And he said, I didn't cut it. My administration did. He said it wasn't him. He said it was his administration. And then he said, I think that's a nasty question. Yet, earlier today, the reports that POTUS, before his speech even began today, Big C, that he still wants to cut funding. And he blames the CDC for the spread. Even though he pledged $50 billion to help combat the spread, but he cut the spread, he cut the funding, and now he's pledging money. I mean, who's getting that money anyway, Big C? Your thoughts? His friends?
Well, you know, this was all about building the wall, Charlton, and funneling money to other projects that are his pet projects. But, you know, when he said he didn't take responsibility for the lag in testing, that was the administration.
Yeah.
These are the people that I appointed that answered to me. And he sit there in front of the world and the American public. But see, this is what his base believes. He's done nothing wrong. And if you were to watch Fox News tonight, they will tell you that the president has a complete command of the situation that's going on right now. He's out front. He's speaking. He's letting the American public know that everything is okay. This is what they'll spin. But they'll also go back and start talking about Obama.
Yeah.
It perplexes me every day when this man talks, and he's still talking about his predecessor, who's not been in office in over 3 years. And I never heard President Obama slam President Bush, who left him in the middle of a war.
No. I mean, it's all true. Everybody could just Google it. Just Google things about what's going on with the CDC and how we fund it, because it could have been acted on a lot sooner as opposed to later. And actually, when it was responded today that he's given the $50 million or $50 billion, who's going to get that money, really? They haven't even seen his tax returns. I know it's a great thing to gesture that we're going to get $50 billion, But $50 billion to who? I mean, who's actually getting the $50 billion?
Well, answer the question for me, Charlton. He gave the largest tax cut in history 2 years ago to all the wealthiest in America, okay?
Yeah.
That means we have a tax shortfall, a reserve shortfall in America. Right now, the deficit in America is the highest in history. They keep talking about Obama accumulated more debt than all previous presidents prior to him. That came from a war that he inherited.
Yeah.
Trump has accumulated more debt in his 3 years than Obama did in his first term as president, in his first 4 years.
Yeah.
But no one talks about that, Charlton. And now the U.S. has less income coming in than at any time during the Obama administration. So there's less funds available as they're giving out this $50 billion here and the $8 billion there, Charlton. Who's going to pay for that? Because our treasury is stretched because of the cut in taxes.
Yeah. I mean, people can Google that, too. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention became the latest target of President Trump's attempts to deflect blame for what's going on and condemned as a disastrous response by his administration on the pandemic. But again, people just got to Google that. I want to Google the facts because I want to learn myself too. But when that $50 billion is given out, I noticed everybody around him pretty much had the same skin color. There were really no checks and balances. And when the one person of color got up and asked him a question, he said it was a nasty question because she asked him why did he cut funding from the CDC. And it's all over the papers now. People can Google it. I just think that's pretty ironic, Big C. I want to also get your thoughts on who has the better attorneys. I think POTUS has pretty good attorneys, Big C, because you can Google things that are written out by the press, Associated Press. Again, he'll come on and say, that's not what I wrote, that's not what I said. You can listen to audio from Fox or other news stations of how he made fun of the pandemic at first, and now he's saying that he's acted faster than anyone in the history of the universe. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has acted faster than anybody in the history of the universe in the United States towards this pandemic because it's the first time we've had coronavirus, okay?
Yeah.
So he's acted faster than any president we've ever had on that.
Yeah, on that, but later than a lot of the CDC would have.
And I'm being flippant about that, Charlton, because we've had no other president that ever had to react to coronavirus.
Yeah, but they
so
have
his actions on coronavirus is the fastest of any United States president on coronavirus.
Yeah.
Is it the fastest on any other pandemic? Hell no.
No, not at all.
It's the slowest reaction of any pandemic that we've had in American history by any president.
Yeah. And so we just ask people to Google it because we want to keep people honest and even ourselves. But you also believe in another sport, the Kentucky Derby, which is really big down south, and I've always enjoyed it. I don't think they've ever had a stoppage of that in about 125 years, but the Kentucky Derby is also counting their run. Is a revenue of about $150 million. I mean, money trumps health. I've always thought that health trumped the money, and I still say that health is more important than money, but you're saying that money's more important than health. They're not necessarily going to stop the Kentucky Derby. They're going to run it. But I want to, before I get your thoughts on that, I think of Santa Anita racetrack down in Los Angeles where there were a number of horses that had died. How they died, we don't know. I'm sure they haven't made it public information. But it took about 27 horses to die before they shut down Santa Anita racetrack in Southern California to figure out what's going on. And I just want to get your thoughts on why we really haven't had the news tell us what happened to those horses. Big C, your thoughts?
It's called overdoping, Charlton. That's what's happened to the horses down there. Too much dope. I mean, they give it to the horses all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had a horse disqualified from this $10 million purse for overdoping, Charlton. So,
really?
I mean, that's what happened in Santa Anita. Horses are like athletes of the 70s and 80s, Charlton, trying to get an advantage.
Yep.
You don't know what a horse is going to do on any particular day, but if you dope them up enough, Charlton, and try to mask it, this is what happened. These horses have overdosed.
That is incredible. I know sometimes they hide what's happening to people, but especially when it comes to animals.
You're going to tell me in this day and age of medical science
they can't tell
that you can't figure out the death of these horses with all the biopsies that they do, Charlton, on everything, all the blood tests that they do. But when you look at the Sport of Kings, okay?
Yeah.
This is an exclusive club like the ownership. You got to be a millionaire to run horses in these exclusive racetracks, in these high-stake races. It's not the boy coming in from down at the corner street bar running these horses.
Right.
You're hiring trainers, jockeys, and all of that. The money that you invest. You're buying these horses for millions of dollars at auction. This is doping, Charlton. It's killing the horses. They're not, you don't tell on yourself when you're in a high-stake industry.
Yeah.
It's just like every time that the NBA owner or NFL owner has been sued, what do? They settle out of court.
They settle out of court.
They don't want to open up their books. They're not going to tell.
Yeah.
Same thing in this.
Well, it's ironic how we put a lot of emphasis on finding out what's going on, but the public needs to know too. The good old boys that do a lot of what you I think you still do it, but I know you told me you used to do it as a young gentleman. The NASCAR races have also, that bring it up over $100 million in revenue, spending in TV advertisement. They're also suspending a lot of what's going on too. Sports shuts down, impacts hundreds of thousands of workers also, which you talked about before. There's a lot of workers that are affected by that too when NASCAR shuts down, as well as any other thing shuts down. But I want to bring up, just get your thoughts on something. I like what they did say today. It's not out yet, but I know Google they're going to do more testing with coronavirus.gov, and there was a doctor that spoke about a screening test where people can go online, Big C, and check if they have symptoms. Then it tells them they'll be able to go to a drive-through testing clinic, and then the test will be shipped to labs, and they'll get the results faster without having to perhaps go to their doctor. And I think Walgreens and CVS and some other stores, I think Walmart, they're going to do that. I think that's actually a good thing. That helps a lot more as long as they can get the test.
Do you have a thermometer at home, Charlton?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's the first test you can take. You ever have an upset stomach?
Yeah.
That's the second symptom. Okay, you ever had the flu?
Not that I recall.
You've never had the flu?
Not that I recall, unless I was a little boy.
Okay, everybody's had the flu, Charlton. Everybody's had a cold.
I said not that I recall.
The cold is just a strand of the flu, okay?
I don't recall. Okay.
The coronavirus is the flu on steroids.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It just has different strands, so that's why you see the little red balls on the screen, the little polyps on there when they show the little ball on the brown ball on the screen.
Yeah.
You can take the test, Charlton. You can self-test yourself. But unless you have the kit, you don't know. The flu is the same symptoms. A cold is the same symptoms. You got headache, fever, upset stomach, Charlton. Those are symptoms of coronavirus. That's self-testing.
Yeah.
So unless you take the test, we can get all the information we can from all the news outlets and all these websites, self-test. It's just like what you keep saying about when you go to court. If you have a client for yourself, he's the damn fool, okay?
Well,
so when we start self-testing ourselves, why do we have medical doctors? Why do we have hospitals? Why do we have clinics?
Yeah.
If we can do all this self-test at home, let me do my own knee surgery at home.
Yeah.
Let me do my own abdomen surgery at home. This is what doctors are for. This is what clinics are for.
Yeah.
So we can self-test, self-medicate as much as we want. Can you write your own prescription and go to a pharmacy and get it filled?
No, you can't.
No, because you're guessing. They want an expert to tell you why you need it and what it's going to do to you. So we can all become self-doctors, Charlton, from the internet. But when you feel bad, do you sit there and say, okay, let me go on the internet, do all my symptoms,
go to the doctor.
and fix it here at the house? Or do you go to the doctor? For your high blood pressure medication, do you go to the doctor or you say, okay, let me read on the internet and see what I can do to lower it?
You definitely go to the doctor. So you disagree with the test that's coming out, and I think it makes sense, but it's just a panacea.
You tell me, Charlton, are you going to go on the internet and solve all your medical problems, especially when you're talking about something that can kill you?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. But she did put it out.
I'm just trying to be realistic here.
Yeah.
Can you believe everything you get on the internet? Think about this. If these guys are experts, why are they giving? Nobody puts information on the internet, Charlton, that's going to cost them money.
Yeah.
Okay. And we all go on the internet and look at stuff, see videos and everything of how to do-it-yourself jobs at home. We're talking about do-it-yourself jobs on projects at home, Charlton.
Yeah.
We're not talking about do-it-yourself projects on your body.
So hold on a second.
So if you want the world and even yourself, you have to be first in line. If you're going to tell people to go on the internet and solve their health issues, you have to be willing to be first in line to go out and do it and then give them the information. I know you say Google and read.
Yeah.
You have to be that guinea pig for them if you're going to give them that information.
So are you saying that you actually disagree with Mike Pence and the doctor that he had speak about going to coronavirus.gov and test yourself online by going online?
Mike Pence for 2 years fought the state of Indiana on AIDS and SARS testing. You tell me if you're going to side with Mike Pence.
That's a very good point. I mean, that's a very good point. We all have an opinion, but that's an opinion that I want to think twice about. Yeah.
That's a fact. He fought the government of Indiana while he was a governor. He fought the Senate in passing bills for 2 years to fund AIDS and SARS medication, Charlton, in the state of Indiana. Think about how many people died because Mike Pence said it was an abomination from God and they didn't deserve the treatment from the government.
Okay, so you
going to believe Mike Pence?
No, I don't believe Mike Pence.
He was willing to let Americans die?
I don't believe it, but let me ask you this question. Because POTUS had a national conference today and call it an emergency. And then to have him and Mike Pence tell America to go onto a website and Google if they have the right answer or not before they go get tested. You don't agree with that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Didn't Mike Pence and POTUS 2 weeks ago tell America that on that Friday there would be 1 million test kits available, shipped out?
Yeah.
And then on that following Monday, Charlton, there'd be another 1.5 million available. You realize we have not had 10,000 Americans tested yet, Charlton?
Wow.
Tell me what you believe.
Well,
which one you believe?
Yeah, that's very. If people can Google that. That's
I'm
very.
talking facts.
Yeah.
I mean, Google the facts.
Yeah.
But you tell me the guy is telling you that anybody can get tested. The tests are beautiful. The tests are perfect. Just like the letter and the phone call with the Ukrainian government. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And this has been a Democratic stunt trying to hurt my candidate, my re-election campaign. This is all about the Democrats.
That is
Tell me what you believe, Jonathan. Tell me which one of those lies is the truth.
That's very salient, Big C, and I think it sounds a bit Malthusian, but sometimes you got to look at things twice. I want to bring this up too. The Premier League of Champions, it calls off matches. Okay, this is in Germany, and there's actually, I think that the U.S. soccer president resigned after gender discrimination lawsuits because women are demanding equal pay. You know, the women's soccer team has done a lot more than the men's, and now they're suing for gender discrimination, and Carlos Cordero resigned as the U.S. Soccer Federation, the president, on Thursday night. Can you believe that? That make any sense? He resigned as opposed to having them pay for pay equity increase. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he made the statement, Charlton, prior to resigning that the men worked harder than the women and deserved more because their job was more physically demanding than the women's, even though they did not qualify for the 2018 World Cup Championship, World Soccer Championship. Oh, ironically, the women won the 2018
That's
World
right.
Cup. So
yeah.
I guess the men were working harder while they were sitting their butts at home on the couch watching the U.S. women go out and win the World Cup, being the best soccer team in the world, and they couldn't even make the tournament. They weren't even good enough to qualify. So I guess that meant that they worked a lot harder lifting up those 6-packs of beer instead of kicking a soccer ball around the stadium.
That's actually interesting. Gender discrimination lawsuit claimed the women national team players had less physical ability and responsibility than their male counterparts. Where have we heard that before in this country, Big C? Doesn't make any sense. It says.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. And I'll relate that to something that we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the nuclear option of the NBA, the owners that are going to exercise it, is going to save them hundreds of millions of dollars, Charlton. This is the same option that collegiate athletes have. They have the nuclear option. I know that the NCAA canceled March Madness.
Yeah.
And then at some point, they're going to try to bring it back. Whether it's 1 month,
they will.
whether it's 2 months, they're going to still try to play March Madness. This is where the collegiate players have the opportunity to exercise the nuclear option, Charlton, and say, no, we're not going to play unless we get paid.
Yeah, they're going to have to exercise that. I just want to close out the U.S. soccer president. His decision elevated former American midfielder Cindy Parlow-Cone to become the first woman president in the history of the 107-year-old federation, and I guess she's a little bit more lazy and not as responsible as the men, according to Carlo Cordero. It's amazing. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on 2 apps that I really love. One's called Google, the other's called Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show, I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really looking forward to launching our real estate listing channel, seeking 100 real estate brokers that simply want to list their properties on TV, just like McDonald's, just like the car dealership with the car that you're driving right now. Also, a lot of sports teams advertise on TV. You can do real estate on TV too when you join the Big C team. So Big C, as we know, $50 billion. I want to be a billionaire too. So when I see POTUS with all of his good old boys from these pharmaceutical companies standing behind him, I saw no people of color, not even Mr. Adams, the United States Surgeon General, was invited to stand next to POTUS as he was trying to tell the American people to use a website to go online to do your own testing for coronavirus. Big C, that make any sense? Again, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you have the most intelligent people in the medical field, whether they're corporate heads or doctors, Charlton, why can't they pass the message on? When you went to college, when you went to high school, when you went to grammar school, and I know I went before they had computers, so I can't even say that.
Yeah.
But when you were in a classroom, did they tell you to open up the book and figure it out and let them know what was going on? Or did they give you the information that you needed to find?
Sometimes both.
Answer that question.
Sometimes both, Big C. I went to a good school.
When you started school, when you were in grammar school and high school, did your teacher, professor, whatever, did they go tell you the information you needed to find?
They told you to read it.
When you started that class, you knew nothing about it.
No, you had to read it. Yeah, you got to read it.
They told you where to find the information and what to look for, didn't they?
Yep.
So you think about this. Did you get a 100 in every one of the classes you had in college?
No.
Okay. This is what you're asking somebody to do now that may not have a college degree, Charlton, to go online. Think about how many people did not go to college. Think about how many were high school dropouts. And I'm not knocking anybody, but I'm saying you're telling people, and you said yourself, you never got 100 on every test in college.
I got 100 on some tests.
Go online because your life is a test of 100%, is it not?
Yeah.
You can't go in and get 83 on that test trying to save your life and think you're going to survive. This is what they're telling people to do.
Yeah.
Go in and get 100 on an online test that you know nothing about and survive.
Yeah.
If you don't get the 100, what's going to happen to you then?
Yeah. They got to get people to go see the doctors, but they're going to discourage people from going if they're saying go self-diagnose yourself on the internet.
It's not the government disparaging people, Charlton, from going to the doctor. It's the damn insurance companies.
Yeah.
The insurance companies are. Who do you think those people were behind the president at the White House today?
Yeah.
They were CEOs of pharmaceutical companies, Charlton, and distribution companies, okay?
Yeah.
When you're talking about Walgreens and other companies of that nature, those are CEOs of companies that make money. They're not in the business of keeping you healthy. They're in the business of making money, selling you stuff.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They were insurance company heads that were behind him, Charlton. These are all economic sector people behind the president. These weren't doctors. You're going to tell me he couldn't have surrounded himself with 12 of the top medical people in the United States
Surgeon General,
behind him today, Charlton?
Yeah, the Surgeon General.
That's not what he had behind him.
Yeah.
He had corporate heads behind him. So look in the mirror. Do you have people behind you trying to make people healthy, or do you have people behind you trying not to spend their money to make people healthy?
That's very, very salient, Big C. I still would have loved to see the Surgeon General of the United States.
You just answered the question, Charlton.
Yeah.
You just said you'd like to see the Surgeon General, didn't you?
Yeah, he was on vacation.
You didn't see him. You saw Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
How many other doctors were behind him? None, Charlton. It was Dr. Fauci. And you're saying, okay, he's got all these people behind him. Those are people trying to not spend money on you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to look at you don't see the forest because of the trees, because the trees are the forest.
That's very well said. Big C, it's been fun on this Friday the 13th. I'm going to go back and watch it again, what I saw. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, the word you just said, Charlton, how can you lose? I have to look at Dana White and wonder what's in Dana White's mind, because he's refusing to cancel his MMA event in Brazil tomorrow night, and he has one the following week in Las Vegas. We're talking about a blood sport.
Yeah.
So this total sport is evolving in passages, Charlton, and whoever sits within the first three rows of the fight is going to get covered with the passages. You cannot protect everybody. So Dana White, and I know he said he talked with the president and the vice president, telling him, go ahead on with your event. Don't worry about anything.
Wow.
He has to be the big boy in the room and take the health of everybody else in mind.
What's more important, your money or your health? You can find out every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.